Hi everyone, this is Wolf Branch Homestead. Today we're talking about something simple but very important. Gloves. Gloves can mean the difference between keeping your hands warm, keeping them clean, keeping them free of briars and splinters, you name it. There are a lot of different purposes for gloves, and we're showing you a few of the sets that we have and the reasons behind them and talking about the importance of these gloves. We're out here at the sawmill at our little wood pile, and over here by some of the beech and the pine and the red maple that we have cut and stacked to dry, and had these laid out to show you. Gloves, like I said, can mean a difference in protecting your hands. We'll start off with nitrile gloves, kind of that medical grade style. You can have latex, you can have vinyl, but we use nitrile. This is the style of glove that I'm using when it comes to working with the animals, trying to keep my hands clean, but also when we're skinning and tanning, when we're picking up these deer hides from the processors and we're trying to tan them and do responsible things with them and repurpose them. This is what I'm using when I'm fleshing those hides, so I have mobility, but I'm keeping my hands clean. Also, when you're working with these hides, sometimes I'll have a longer up to my elbow pair of really tough rubber gloves so that I can get down in and turn the hides in the chemicals without getting anything on my hands, because we tan with the salt and alum process and I don't want that to get into my skin. So I have those longer gloves that I'm using up to my elbows to be able to reach in there and not get anything on me. These gloves right here have a coated bottom, but they have a breathable mesh back on the top of your hand. So they're not going to get as hot as just having your hand completely coated like this, but they're good to protect your hands during, a little bit warmer season and keep your palm of your hand safe, but the back side's still breathable. This is a good option. For instance, when we're out here and we're working with the wood, when I'm trying to keep a little bit of sawdust off my hands, moving wood around, things like that, it's a good option and it's not real hot to wear these gloves. Another option when you get into the colder season is to start wearing insulated gloves to keep your hands warm, keep them from getting too cold, keep them well protected. Especially doing winter chores. I can't count the pairs of gloves that I went through growing up when I would be at my grandmother's farm out there trying to break up ice in the horse troughs, moving wood for her, things like that. When it was a little bit earlier in the season, I would have a pair of thinner cotton gloves, and that's what I would use to help bring in wood to the house. Those cotton gloves you can usually find pretty cheap. Sometimes they're good for gardening, which, back to this side, these remind me more of a gardening style glove. So that's another option with these that have the breathable back, but the palm is coated. You're out pulling weeds or you're picking okra, even if it's the spineless type, it can still kind of make your hands itchy. So having something like that in the garden is a good idea. You can get those cheaper cotton gloves, and like I said, that's what we would use to bring firewood in the house for my grandmother. This pink and black pair here, they look really thin, but they're actually double layered, and on the inside is very, very warm. I enjoy wearing these in the wintertime, and sometimes if it's a little bit cold, I'll wear another pair on top of this. These are my husband's bigger winter gloves here. They're really warm, but they're not double layer. But it's still a good pair of gloves. And he's got a couple different pairs. I just wanted to show you one. But, that's another thing, is there's different size gloves. So make sure to find something that fits your hand well and fits it snug, but also provides you flexibility in your hand. Another pair of gloves that I have, when it's not terribly cold out, they still do keep my hands warm, but they're not as flexible as I would like. Again, we have quite a few pairs of gloves depending on what season it is and what purpose. This pair is particularly sentimental to me because I grew up wearing these gloves, and I can still wear them now, but not as often because they are a little bit smaller. When I was younger and I would go out to the farm where my grandmother lived at and work with the horses, this is the pair of gloves that I would use so that I wouldn't have any kind of rope burn when I was a kid, you know, working with them, whether it be leading them around or out in the round pen with them. And the main thing I remember with them is we had one horse sent off to be trained, and I really appreciated the gentleman and the way that he trained horses was not forceful, and he worked with the horse, and I really looked up to that, and I appreciated somebody that wasn't just cruel about the way that they trained. And I really enjoyed the fact that even though I was still not quite a teenager, that I was able to work with him when he brought the gelding back, and he involved me in the training process. And one of the things that I remember is having these gloves on and being in the round pen and lunging the horse and wearing those to protect my hands in the process. So having a good pair of gloves, not only to, you know, get out and work in the yard, but also to work with animals. If you have a larger animal that you're leading around and you don't want your hands to be injured, if you think that the animal might bolt on you, protect your hands. Go ahead and be prepared so you don't hurt yourself. And anything that you're doing involving rope, if you're scared that a rope is going to slide on you, have a good pair of gloves. We move on to the ones that we use out in the woods, like I was talking about earlier. That's my husband's pair of gloves. They have a really thick leather, especially in the palm, but also the fingers have guards on them. And I have a simple pair of gloves, but you know, this is really important, again, with moving firewood. Like right now, we're splitting a lot of firewood, and if I was just doing that barehanded, I would have so many splinters by now. So I really appreciate being able to wear a good pair of gloves. And there are a lot of different styles. You know, there's some that have a more beefed up palm to protect you a little bit further. They have gloves that are specifically for people that are working with chainsaws, where you have a more protected hand in case you do happen to do something with a chainsaw or with an axe, you know, something where you are less likely to cut yourself, but with that, you know, be very, very safe when you're handling any kind of tool or any kind of machinery. Be very cautious and take good measure to make sure you're not going to hurt yourself. But wearing proper equipment, that's one of the important parts of that as well. A good pair of gloves can go a long way. Again, whether that's just keeping your hands free of mess, keeping them warm in the wintertime, or keeping yourself from getting, you know, a small injury, a splinter, something like that. It's a good thing to have a few pairs on hand for whatever you need them for. So take time to evaluate what you have on hand, what you may need a good pair of gloves for. And not only something for the wintertime, something for getting out in the garden, something for moving firewood around, or even just something around the house if you need a pair of those latex, those nitrile vinyl gloves, something like that, just for a household mess, or, you know, for cleaning something in the house and you don't want to get anything on your hands. Also, a lot of people, you know, with those type of gloves, you have those in medical environments. A lot of the vet clinics, the animal shelters, they're going to use those. So, hey, there's a donation idea. If you have a local animal shelter, check with them and see things that they need. That might be one of the things on their list, is to provide them with some gloves to keep their hands free of mess when they're taking care of those animals. Another good thing with that, when you're looking at the donation list, getting things they're in immediate need of, that can make a real difference. Somebody with an animal care background, I can attest to that fact, that there were times where there were things that we were really, really in need of. Right now, I can guarantee you a lot of your local shelters are going to be in need of kitten food, whether that be dry or canned. Right now we're getting into that breeding season for cats. A lot of them are having kittens right now, so you know, check and see what they need. Again, not just a pair of good gloves, but also, hey, they might even need some like this for being outside, working with the dogs and the kennels, moving things around. You never know. So check with them and see what they need. But for you personally, make sure you have a good pair on hand for whatever need that you have. Make sure that they fit correctly. That's another thing when you're working with any kind of equipment. Make sure that you have properly fitting clothing. So with this, make sure you have a good pair of gloves that you can work in. We appreciate you watching and hope that this will make you consider some of the things you might need this year, some of the things you should have on hand. We're going to get into a lot more videos on simple things like this, but we're also going to get into some of the past Mother Earth news blog posts that I've written. I'm going to do some more videos to accompany those articles, so you're going to see a lot more coming up. Really simple things or fun little projects, you name it, we're going to have a lot to go and accompany those articles, but also bring you around and show you more of an up close and more in-depth to those subjects. As always, we appreciate you watching, and we hope you have a wonderful day, and stay tuned for our next video.